All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And tomorrow is a big day for fighting game fans, for Mortal Kombat fans, for NetherRealm fans, well, and for gamers in general, because I suspect that Mortal Kombat 1 is going to be one of the most content-rich games ever, especially for a fighter. With all due respect to Street Fighter 6, and I know Street Fighter 6 has a ton of things you can do, but I'm going to go into detail in terms of what we can expect tomorrow at the gameplay reveal event, because I suspect there's going to be a lot to be shown. And then maybe at the end, if there's time and if I remember, we can talk a little bit about the story. But for the most part, this is going to be about the game itself. A lot of it is going to be, how do I put this? A lot of it is going to be something like things that are very obvious, and then things that are slightly less obvious. But at the same time, there's also the fact that, well, when it comes to Mortal Kombat, there are certain things that are obvious in terms of what's coming and everything. But the question is, how exactly is it going to be implemented and how it's going to be altered and different, right? Kind of like the characters in the story, as you can see here. We've got Liu Kang, we got Kung Lao, we got Raiden, we got Shang Tsung, we got Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Kitana, Melina. So, but the thing is, the difference is, how is it going to be different this time? How are, because changing or altering things in unique ways can make a really big difference, not just in the story, but in the gameplay as well. So we're going to kind of get into that a little bit as well. But let's get at it. And I actually, the funny thing about this is, before starting here, I actually scripted this while I was at work during my downtime at work, and I still can't get the email to properly work, so that way I can send it here and then read off of that script, or just kind of look at the script in case I missed something. But oh well. I mean, most of the stuff I've done throughout my 8 years here on YouTube has been unscripted anyway. But let's talk, okay? So let's get into, like, one of my number one thing on this list is probably the most obvious thing, right? One of the most obvious things is that I'm expecting this game to look good. When they reveal the gameplay tomorrow, I'm expecting the gameplay to look good. If we go back and look at Mortal Kombat 11, when they revealed at the Game Awards, when they revealed the game, which was a CGI trailer, and then when we saw the gameplay footage from the event, I remember seeing it from I also remember seeing it from I don't know if I saw it first, like, through a NetherRealm stream, or I don't know if I saw Maximilian Dude's footage from when he went to the event. But I remember people saying that, like, I remember him saying that, like, how in the hell does this look so good? And it's like, yeah, it looks really close to what we saw in the gameplay in the reveal trailer, right? And Mortal Kombat X, it was almost the same thing, but not quite as good as Mortal Kombat 11. Probably because of the hardware as well. So with Mortal Kombat 1 here, I'm actually expecting the game to look as close to this trailer, if not as equally as good as this trailer, believe it or not. I wouldn't even be surprised if parts of the story were in this trailer, like, because obviously they change things whenever they, from the full release to the reveal, they change things, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, at the same time, this could also be, like, just specifically for the reveal event. There's that as well. But honestly, like, did you see that little tidbit right there where Liu Kang kicked Shang Tsung to the ground? I'm expecting the gameplay to look like that. Like, I kid you not. And I wouldn't be surprised if, again, same thing with the fatalities. And we've seen in previous trailers, like in MKX, we've seen Scorpion's fatality on Sub-Zero, and then that's what we got in the trailer. And the same thing when Scorpion did the fatality on Raiden in that reveal trailer. It's the same thing, and it looked damn near the same, if not the same. So again, I'm expecting the game, from a gameplay standpoint, to look as good as what we're seeing in the trailer so far. So moving on to number 2, again, an obvious other one is fatalities. Fatalities are obviously going to be making a return, but the question is, are they going to be, like, is there going to be any different? You know what I mean? Because, again, the story and the gameplay throughout Mortal Kombat and throughout its history kind of collide, and they kind of coincide with each other. So I'm actually really interested to seeing, like, if there's going to be any kind of changes that they're going to make to fatalities. I'm not necessarily saying in terms of how you do them or when you do them. I'm specifically saying in terms of their presentation. Obviously, especially ever since Mortal Kombat X, the presentation of fatalities has been absolutely ridiculous every time. And the thing is, they always seem to one-up themselves. NetherRealm somehow, some way gets so creative enough to where they up themselves in terms of the fatalities. And it wouldn't be Mortal Kombat without fatalities after all. Of course, in the famous words of Ed Boon as well. So I'm interested to seeing exactly what the fatalities are going to be like in this game and how they're going to differentiate from character to character as well. Obviously, I'm expecting Liu Kang's fatality that you see at the end of this trailer probably be that same exact fatality that you see at the end of the game. So let's get right into it. And to number 3, stage fatalities are also going to be making a return. And the thing that personally excites me is obviously besides the fact that the gameplay looks as great as it does, or excuse me, as the game from a trailer standpoint so far looks as great as it does, is that we know again that the story is kind of like a retelling, but not really. Like Liu Kang has created his own world and everything like that. But the thing is, I think we're gonna get like reimagined versions of a few of the famous stages in Mortal Kombat, such as the Pit. I think the Pit is probably the most famous of them all, or a version of the Pit, right? But the original Pit is probably the most famous of all that started it all with Mortal Kombat in terms of stage fatalities. So that is one that would really excite me. I mean, hell, it'd be cool if we can see the Living Forest again. That'd be great. And a lot of retellings of the first trilogy I think we're going to get in this game, which is obviously terrific. And of course, I'm excited to see some really cool backgrounds like Edenia and stuff like that. But anyway, stage fatalities making a return. How exactly are they going to be looking, and the things that they do with the camera angles I think is going to be very interesting. So we will see what they do from there. Now, number 4, this is kind of sort of a hot take. No new characters. I don't think we're going to have any new characters in this game as far as playable characters go. And I don't think we're going to have, like, from a story perspective, if anything, we might have one. And what I mean by one is maybe the final boss. Possibly. We're not sure. But I personally don't think that we're going to get any new characters. Not just because of the game itself and the story and the kind of sort of retelling of it or whatever it is. I think it's also because Mortal Kombat itself has enough characters throughout its lore to where we can see returning characters. Like, I think I am willing to say that I believe that every single character that we've ever had in a Mortal Kombat game may very well make a return in this game. They may very well make a return in this game, and I, for one, am excited about it because in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the main roster or whether it's the cameo characters, which they haven't described exactly 100% of what that is yet, so which we're going to find out soon, but the cameo characters, the main characters, right? And then you're going to have all the other stuff that we're going to get into here in a minute in terms of the rest of my list here that I wrote down at work since I couldn't send it via email. I have to say that I think fans should expect in some way, shape, or form for their favorite character or a character that they haven't seen in a while to make an appearance in this game in some way, shape, or form. I am willing, I'm not a betting man, but I am willing to say that that would happen. I think it's a very likely chance that it could happen. And as we get continuing throughout this list here, you'll understand where I'm coming from. Let's see. A new obvious, well, here's another one, of course, the Crypt. The Crypt will be making a return. And if you look at the Crypt from previous iterations, ever since its first iteration, it's been getting more and more sophisticated, especially when you look at, for instance, Mortal Kombat X and then Mortal Kombat 11. As of the last 2 games, the Crypt has become more and more sophisticated and more advanced and more like its own game. And I am willing to say that either one of 2 things are going to happen. Either the Crypt is going to be its own entity like it always has, but more sophisticated and even better and more interactive and immersive, or the Crypt may be a part of story / conquest mode, and we'll get into that when we get there. So, very safe to say, and of course, since there's already currency that's already been confirmed, so since there's currency, it's like, well, you got to spend it on something, right? So There's gotta be a crypt, and also there may be a chance that there may be many ways to spend it beyond just the crypt, because you never know what they're going to come up with. So let's go on to number 6. Another feature that's pretty much a given at this point is easy fatalities. Easy fatalities are very likely to make a return because they really haven't harmed the game in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it makes it a little bit more accessible to completely new players that might be interested in the game. So I certainly don't see why easy fatalities can't be in the game. You know, it doesn't really matter whether you do them the classic way or the easy way anyway. It doesn't really affect gameplay if you think about it. If anything, it's pretty much a fat-free way to kind of cater to new players. You know, and what I mean by fat-free is nobody's really, you know, it's not at the expense of anything else or anybody else really, and it doesn't really affect gameplay. So, easy fatalities are pretty much guaranteed to return. Now this is also another given, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into this. Alternate costumes are obviously going to make a return, but I think as far as the fighting part of the game goes, and this is where my speculation comes in, as far as the fighting part of the game goes, I think they're obviously going to be cosmetic only. They're just going to be there to show off and to look good, right? Okay, cool. And to show off to your opponent that like, hey, I was able to get this costume because I did this, right? And then when you go into either story mode, which is said to be very immersive, a story mode or a conquest mode, which story mode may very well be, I think that the costumes, the alternate costumes, may have an effect on the gameplay, kind of like RPG style. So you can find alternate costumes for your character all over the place. You can earn them from doing tasks, side quests, fighting other characters, such and such and such. And even in online multiplayer as well. Or should I say, you know, well, yeah, we can call it multiplayer, you know, one-on-one or tag team or whatnot. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of them. And I think they're going to have a very big impact in gameplay. And the thing is, they can translate onto the regular 1v1 or 2v2, however it is, fighting game, right? But when you're playing that, it's just going to be to show off. It's like, wow, they got this. How did they get that? Holy crap, they were able to get this. And then when you go into story mode or conquest mode or whatnot, then that would be the only bearing it would have on gameplay, right? Okay. So that is number 7. Number 8, new combo system / engine. I think as far as the combo system goes, I have a feeling that there might be like something. Well, okay, maybe not a completely new combo system, but I would say it's something fresh and something new. Especially since breakers have been announced to make a return. They've been confirmed to make a return, but the question is how. But I think we'll get that in when we get there. I think I've written that down in a later number. But I think this game is going to have a new engine. You know, this is kind of a retelling to a certain degree, while simultaneously kind of being a continuation, sort of, kind of, maybe. No, not really. So since they're going in this direction and that they're going and calling it Mortal Kombat 1, and for this taking place where it takes place and the characters being the way they are, as you know, compared to how we knew them in the past from previous iterations, and that it's been confirmed that things are going to change. The only question is how. I would say that it makes sense for the engine to also be new, right? It may very well possibly be a thing, and why not? And I think the game is going to. I mean, this could be. I don't know. Is it Unreal 5? I don't know. I'm not sure, but one way or another, I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. Number 9. Here we go. I predict that Harakiris and animalities will make a return, if not just one of them. So what I mean by this is, like, out of all the finishes that we've ever had, right? The only ones that have not made a return since their last or original or only implementation has been the Harakiri or the animality. The animality we haven't seen since Mortal Kombat 3 or Ultimate MK3 or Mortal Kombat Trilogy, let's just say that. And Harakiri we haven't seen since Deception. And fans have been talking about that, and they sure as hell are good iterations. Now, I prefer to have both back. However, with that being said, I think that if I had to pick one of the two to make a return, it would be the Harakiri, because it's it give for number one, we've only seen it one time in Deception, and number two, it gives the losing player a chance to somewhat impact the finish of the match, even though they've lost, in order to keep their opponent from getting that exclamation point, so to speak, right? That ultimate satisfaction. And at the same time, it would be, again, a very interesting thing, because your opponents, it's like an alternate fatality. Your opponents, you're basically killing your opponent in a fatality, but it's a little bit different when you do it to yourself, especially since in the previous iteration in Mortal Kombat Deception, which is the last time and the only time we've seen it, that it's, a lot of them are kind of humorous. So, and it's kind of like a race at the end of the match, even though they won. It's like, ooh, it's a race to see who gets the finisher off first. So, yeah. So, that's number 9. Number 10, tag team / cameo. We haven't really been given any detail in terms of what the cameos are exactly. At least not 100%. We're thinking tag team, we're thinking assists and stuff like that, but obviously it's going to be implemented in a different way than it's been implemented before. So I think NetherRealm is going to, I don't know. A part of me thinks that they're trying to get the best of both worlds, possibly, and yet make it even more interactive and more like maybe add another in-depth layer of gameplay to it. None of us know right now, and it will know soon enough. But as of right now, none of us really know. And until we find out, all we can speculate is tag team or assists or a little bit of both, or I don't know, different ways to play characters and stuff. I don't know. But my assumption is that NetherRealm obviously wouldn't put it in the game if it wasn't worth putting in the game, and if it wasn't something that would change things up. And the thing is, like, this kind of system can actually be like something new for the game, for the fighting game genre, not just Mortal Kombat, but in terms of gameplay for the fighting game genre. I think it could be a very good addition to it. So I think we can definitely be in a treat for that. So now, here's where things start to get interesting. Number 11, story / conquest mode. Story mode and conquest mode might be one and the same this time. And what I personally think it's going to be like, when it comes time to fight somebody, there's still going to be the number one, the one-on-one fighting, or the regular fighting like you see in the game, right? Okay. Now, I think the one-on-one fights are going to be like boss battles against other characters. So, like, other characters will be considered kind of like bosses, right? But everything else, you're going to be kind of doing it in like third-person view, where you see the character from behind, and it'll be kind of like an action-adventure RPG type of style game. And whenever you fight other characters, it's going to be something similar to like maybe Shaolin monks. And then when you're talking about the upgrade system, that's where the RPG sets in, as well as maybe when you run into NPCs. That's what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a hybrid type of system, right? And like I said, the Crypt might even be in the story mode conquest world, to where you have to look at your map and you have to go to the Crypt. I don't know. That may be a thing. That may not be a thing. It may be both. Who knows? But you get the point. So, and here's an interesting thing. Whenever you do fight another character, when it's time for that quote-unquote boss battle and you have to face a character in Mortal Kombat and traditional fighting, right? I think depending on that character and depending how far you are in terms of that, in terms of to make it challenging, besides the characters having different difficulty levels, you guys remember things like what's it called? Slow combat, fast combat, dark combat, things like that, weapon combat, or whatever it is. They can implement stuff like that into the boss battle, at least to a certain extent or something like that, and you would be challenged that way. Or there would be some sort of handicap, like, okay, you want to, this is to get to the next part, you gotta, you've only got like 25 or 50% health, while the AI or whatnot has 100% of health. or they've got twice as much damage, you've got half damage or something like that. So that represents some very interesting ways in terms of how they can do that. So I think story mode and conquest mode are going to be absolutely incredible. I honestly think they're going to be one and the same this time. And I think the amount of things that you're going to be able to do is incredible, especially when it comes to the fact that it's going to be online friendly, probably. And we're going to get into that when we get there. But let's go on to number 12. Number 12, again, another obvious one is training mode. Training mode is going to come back, and if this game is going to play differently than the other Mortal Kombats and with the new elements and features and stuff like that, it only makes sense to have a training mode. It's a given, and especially since Mortal Kombat has become more complex now than what it was previously in terms of a few iterations ago, especially now that it's entered the competitive scene and everything like that. I think it's going to be very interesting in terms of what they're going to do with the training mode. And when you look at things that like what Capcom has done with Street Fighter and everything like that, and with Street Fighter 6, they've made that game so amazingly like accessible, and it teaches players of all sorts of skill levels in terms of how to play the game, how everything works, what this is, what that is. They obviously did that very well in Mortal Kombat Deception. They've done it in Mortal Kombat 11, but again, with this game, I'm sure they're going to do it once again. And of course, they're going to explain the new things and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's necessary for like almost every single player. So obviously that's going to be a given. So training mode will be making a return. And let's move on to number 13. There's going to be, this is also a given in my opinion, there's going to be a traditional arcade ladder and endings as well. Now, as far as endings are concerned, now, first of all, they may have different kinds of ladders. There's going to be obviously there's going to be your traditional arcade ladder, but they may have a different arcade ladder to where one of them is going to require you to play the least amount of characters, and then your medium, and then your expert is going to be where you play the most amount of characters. However, with that being said, there's also there's also the fact that they may do complex arcade ladders, right? So there's also going to be endings. Now, I personally don't mind if the endings are pretty much the same in terms of how they've been presented over the last couple of games. I don't mind that at all. I think they're just fine. But if the endings were presented in an even more upgradable way, I think that would be pretty cool. Again, not a necessity. It's not a make or break or anything like that. But character endings obviously are going to exist. Everybody's going to have their own, character endings. But as far as the traditional arcade ladder goes, but in terms of how those endings are going to be presented, it's going to be pretty interesting. But again, if they were presented the same way as they were the past couple of iterations, I certainly wouldn't mind it at all. Actually, it's probably going to be that, but just saying, if they upgrade that too, I think that would be very impressive, especially since if everything that I'm saying or a portion of what I'm saying is coming true, it takes a lot of time to develop this amount of content. So yeah. So let's move on to number 14. Okay, so NetherRealm always tries to add in something new with every iteration of every game they create, right? You guys remember the factions in Mortal Kombat X? Now, I'm not suggesting factions 2.0, no. But I'm saying there's going to be something new in the game that they're going to be putting in that basically combines everything together, and that gets all the players to not just play together, but like in terms of everything they do, they kind of correlate with each other, if that makes sense. But in a different way. Like games throughout history have been famous for iterating other aspects of different games into their games. Like obviously, like RPGs are like some of the first games, if not the first games, to implement like things like customization and an XP system. So if they were to take that, and if they were to put that into the next game, if they were to take that and put that into their game, obviously, then that would be successful. So I think something like that is going to be a thing in Mortal Kombat 1. There's going to be some sort of feature that basically puts everything together regardless of how you choose to play the game, and how it rewards you, or maybe how you can do it together with other people, and how online friendly it might be, right? You put all these things together, it just makes all the sense in the world. So So something new, some new feature within the game to make it work the way it does is going to be in it, um, but we just don't know what that is yet. Anyway, let's move on to number 15. Rollback netcode and at 120 FPS. So rollback netcode has been an absolute godsend for online play. So, and it's already been confirmed that it's going to be in there. And the last game ran at 120 on the new consoles, except for very specific parts like the fatal blows. Those ran at 30 to give more detail and stuff like that. But in terms of the game running at 120 FPS, obviously is going to be a given with the current consoles, the new ones, so to speak, as well as everything else. But I think that there may be a possibility that there's also going to be crossplay. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet or not, or if I missed it. I apologize if I did. But there may be a possibility that it could be crossplay. There could be crossplay, and regardless of whatever platform you play on, you can play with other people within the same infrastructure, and which would make the player base much larger. And to top it all off, you would find matches easier, you would find matches faster, and it just makes it possible for you to play with or against somebody from a different console, which leads me to number 16 is online friendly / co-op. So in some way, shape, or form, it might be possible to, at least to a certain extent, kind of co-op something with somebody in the world of the story or conquest mode, or whether or not they're one and the same. That's just speculation on my part. But imagine getting your friend and actually walking through certain parts together. Obviously, you may or may not be able to do things together, or you may or may not be limited to do certain things together. But with that being said, like if somebody is, let's say they're looking for something specific and they can't find it, it's like, they ask your friends, like, here, I'll show you. It's like you see their character and then they kind of walk you to where you need to go or something like that. Again, not a make or break necessarily, but in terms of online friendly, obviously that's a given, I think. But co-op, maybe, just maybe. They might do it in a way to where, kind of like they might even give you the option in terms of whether you control your cameo character or not, or maybe your partner might control the cameo character. So, which also increases communication, which is obviously good. You're not just playing things by what you see and what you feel, but you're also communicating, like, hey, tag me in or whatnot or something like that, or hey, I'm going to do this, get ready. Number 17. I've already mentioned this. All characters in MK1. Number 18. New Super / Ultra. In Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat introduced their version of a super called the X-Ray move. They brought it back in Mortal Kombat X. And in Mortal Kombat 11, we basically had the Fatal Blow. I think we're going to have something different this time. I don't know. I don't think they're going to bring back the Fatal Blow. They may, or they may bring back the X-Ray. I'm not sure. But they may do something completely new in terms of a super move or an ultra move or something like that. And I think it's going to look cool. And in terms of gameplay, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually change things up to where, you're not just going to press the 2 triggers at the same time and activate it. It might be more in depth than that. You might actually have to do an input like you do everything else, like for a combo or something like that, especially since breakers have already been confirmed to make a return. But the question is, how are they going to be implemented? I don't think they're going to do a cut and paste like Killer Instinct in terms of how combo breakers work, but I wouldn't be surprised if they actually took a piece of it somehow. But with NetherRealm, they try not to repeat themselves too much. I don't think they try to copy other things too much. I'd probably say the biggest thing that they're going to copy is obviously the rollback netcode, which obviously makes sense. It's something that works the best more than anything else, which is something that Killer Instinct did, if I'm not mistaken, first. So, yeah. I'm legitimately thinking that we're going to have a new super or an ultra somehow implemented in the game, and it's obviously going to look cool. It's obviously going to change the pace of a match if somebody gets caught in one, and it's going to be very satisfying to execute, and of course, like I mentioned originally, to look at. So moving on to number 19, faster than Mortal Kombat 11. Apparently there were a lot of players or content creators that I saw that kind of complained about the pacing of Mortal Kombat 11, saying that it felt too slow, or you couldn't do as much with the combos or anything like that. Um, I don't know how the entirety of the community feels about that. I'm not sure, but if Mortal Kombat, because in Mortal Kombat X they basically say it was perfect, right? So if Mortal Kombat 11 was too slow and Mortal Kombat X was perfect, NetherRealm, I'm assuming, is either going to do one of two things. They're either going to make the pacing similar to Mortal Kombat X, or they're going to find a happy middle ground, right? To where it's going to be faster than Mortal Kombat 11, but not as fast as MKX. That's looking at it from a developer standpoint. I think that that's one of the two things that they're going to do. Or better yet, leave it in the hands of the player. And what do I mean by that? Well, in Mortal Kombat 3, they had integrated the run button. Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 originally had 5 buttons. You had your high punch, your low punch, your high kick, your low kick, and then you had your block. And then in Mortal Kombat 3 and 3 Ultimate and or Ultimate 3 and Trilogy, there was another button that was implemented, and that was the run button. So so now you had 6 buttons, and what it did was it changed the pacing of a match tremendously, and it would allow the player that was going on the offensive to sprint towards you and get a combo in and stuff like that, as opposed to just walking or jumping towards you if they didn't want to jump. It gave them the option to come closer to you faster without having to jump. So and even faster than jumping, if I'm not mistaken. So they may implement something like that or invent something completely new. So that's my speculation on that. And then number 20, DLC characters and story expansion, right? And constant updates. If story mode / conquest mode are going to be one and the same, and if it's going to work similarly in a way that I've described, it may be there may be constant updates to the game, especially if it's online friendly and if things are going to change and if there's going to be events happening within that mode, or within one of the modes, or constant modes, right? Because there are going to be constant modes, right? I mean, think about it. You got your arcade ladder, you got your story mode, and if conquest mode's not going to be a part of that, it's going to be conquest mode as well, probably. And then you've got the Crypt, the way it works, and then you've got your tag team. You got your online component, and probably something new that we don't know about yet. So, and then of course you got your DLC characters. I've already made a separate video in terms of what DLC characters might make it in there. I think I have, at least. I don't know if I released it or not, but because sometimes I do upload a few videos, but for one reason or another, I don't really make them go live because they're either not ready to go live yet, or I totally forget. And by the time I remember, it's too late. So it's like, don't post it. It's way too late. But yeah, DLC characters, including the ones that you didn't get in previous iterations that you've been calling for, are likely going to make themselves seen finally. And in Mortal Kombat 11, they did Aftermath, which was a story expansion of Mortal Kombat 11 story mode. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that. But at the same time, if Conquest and story mode are one of the same, or if story mode pretty much acts like a Conquest mode, you know what I mean? Then doing constant expansions of that would be freaking awesome. Or just an expansion of that. But I'm pretty sure that tomorrow we're going to find out in terms of what their plans are in that aspect after they reveal everything. So I'm actually really curious as to how close I am, or how far I am from what the game actually is, and how good I am at predicting things, which has me excited. And this is my my number 21, which is the last thing I had written down, and makes sense for it to be the last thing because I'm expecting the game to be finished and polished on release. To this day, NetherRealm has not let us down in that aspect. And obviously they've delayed for obvious reasons that we already know about, but at the same time, they're also being incredibly ambitious with the game. So I think what they've managed to do is they've managed to make most of their extra time by not just making sure that the game is in a state that it should be on release, but to add more to the game and give it more life and make it last longer and give it more fruitfulness, so to speak, more content, more everything, which is something that NetherRealm is already known for. So now with this extra time, when you have a content creator, when you've got a developer like NetherRealm who's already known for doing such and such, it's like, and has a history of it as well, a long and rich history of it. It's like, okay, how do we it's like, okay, how do we make the most of this extra time? There's no doubt about it that they took this extra time to make whatever it is that they've made that we don't know yet, that we're speculating on, just like I am in this video. So with that being said, those are the things that I had written down from a gameplay standpoint in terms of what I'm expecting or what could possibly be the case. This is things that I'm expecting as well as possible speculation. So predictions, speculations, expectations. So now, in terms of the story mode, we already know there's going to be twists and turns. You know, there's speculation, of course, by myself and others that the roles that may be reversed between Kitana and Mileena. Kung Lao doesn't have his Razor Hat, as you can see. Raiden may or may not have his powers, you know, because you see some lightning and thunder in the background. Well, you see thunder in the background right there. Kitana might be the one that's not the princess. It might be Mileena. And Mileena might not even be created by Shang Tsung like it was in the original lore. It might be different. It might be that Mileena may have a maybe some sort of birth defect. Maybe Kitana and Mileena aren't related. You just never know. Like, and of course, Scorpion and Sub-Zero were not related in the original Mortal Kombat, but in this trailer where you see here, they, from a genetic standpoint as well as a look standpoint and everything, and even from the medallions on their chests and the tattoos and stuff, it's like they may very well be brothers, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. Hell, Kung Lao and Raiden might even be related or brothers. You never know. And then here comes Liu Kang, you know, Fire God Liu Kang. And another speculation that I have is, obviously Liu Kang in the lore created this alternate world, right, of Mortal Kombat. Like this, he created it, right? So why, I mean, I kind of have this speculation that maybe, although it may not be the case, what if Liu Kang was like corrupt or something? What if he was a corrupt god? Or it might be, I mean, you don't know. We don't know for sure. It makes it interesting, but we don't know for sure. And I, for one, am very eager to find out, because one of the things that separates Mortal Kombat from the rest of these other fighting games specifically, or just actually ever since the beginning, the story was very appealing to me, and it's only gotten better over time, and it's been told very well. From the first Mortal Kombat movie, and then obviously when they started implementing story mode into their games, as well as just the little tidbits that a fan like myself would geek out over or would nerd out over. Very interesting, especially after Deadly Alliance. You know, when Deadly Alliance, it was like, whoa, Liu Kang is dead, and then Quan Chi and Shang Tsung team up. Oh my gosh, they killed Shao Kahn. And then in Deception, it was like Raiden's Earthrealm warriors have failed to stop the Deadly Alliance from fully resurrecting the mummified army of a Dragon King. It's like, what? And then we see the Dragon King, which is another character that we have not seen since, well, story-wise, Deception, but we saw him in Armageddon. But I just won't even count Armageddon, to be honest. I don't count MK vs. DC or Armageddon, respectfully speaking. And if I had to count one, obviously it would be Armageddon from a lore and story perspective, which is the only way. But MK vs. DC is kind of different, I guess. But you guys get the point here. The point is that we might see Onaga. And this gives us a chance to see exactly how who Onaga is, or what he is. And then what about the other guys like Shao Kahn? We already know we got Shang Tsung, as well as the others that have been revealed in this specific trailer here, as Shang Tsung makes his way through this portal. You see what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting to see who the bad guys are this time, who the good guys are this time, who the wild cards are, because Scorpion for a long time has been a wild card, right? Before he turned good and all that kind of stuff. He was kind of a wild card. He was originally kind of like a bad guy, and then he became a wild card that doesn't team with anybody, and then there's a good guy, and you know what I mean? So all these characters have gone through all these different story arcs and changes, so it's like, what kind of changes in story arcs are going to be implemented now? What are we going to get this time? What is going on with Scorpion and Sub-Zero? What is going on with Kitana and Mileena? Does Raiden have his powers? Kung Lao's Razor Hat, where is that? What kind of, is Shang Tsung the main protagonist, or is he not? Who is the main protagonist? What about Sindel? And some of these other characters. What about Jade? What about the cameo characters? How do they work? All that stuff. These are the kind of questions that keep Mortal Kombat fans interested. And I think as I get close to the end here, I think it's actually a stroke of genius for NetherRealm to restart things without restarting them, so to speak, right? An alternate timeline makes sense to where it's like, how do we restart things without restarting things? How do we stay true to our original vision while changing things up? How do we do that, right? It's seemingly like an impossible task when you ask yourself this question. But when you start to figure things out and you start to kind of realize that maybe you can play with a few things, that is what makes it interesting. And then you ask yourself, what if Scorpion and Sub-Zero were actually related? What if they were siblings? What if Kitana and Melina were not this? What if their roles were reversed, right? And that would be very interesting. And some people are speculating that Melina might be a good guy in this game, which I think, again, would be very interesting. Imagine if Kitana was a pain in the ass and Melina wasn't. But from the look that Melina gives Kitana in the trailer, it seems like she's pissed off or bad or whatnot, or maybe it's just made to look that way, or maybe she's just made to look that way, but you never know. She might be a complete sweetheart. You never know, even though she doesn't look like it. But at the same time, looks can be deceiving, right? I mean, look at Shang Tsung, for instance, right? Shang Tsung almost looks like he could be a good guy as he comes through that portal, but when you start to see, which I've edited out in this trailer here, by the way, this is edited. I've cut out the violent parts, but you see him take a soul in it. You see him kill a few people in gruesome Mortal Kombat fashion, right? So, because this trailer over here, in terms of the way I edited it, it makes him look almost innocent, so to speak, but that's not the case. But the thing is, Shang Tsung doesn't look like he's evil in like when he first walks through that portal, so to speak, right? But he is. So the way somebody looks completely different than what they might be personality wise, right? You know, just like a beautiful woman. Just because she's beautiful doesn't necessarily mean right off the bat that she's, you know, a total sweetheart or whatnot. That's not the case. And a lot of times it's not, because the beautiful ones are usually the ones you have to watch out for. They'll have that beautiful look about them and they may seem like a sweetheart, and then fast forward some time later, you get to see who they really are, and then you start to say to yourself, you know what? I think I'd rather deal with Melina. You see what I mean? So anyway, with that being said, I've pretty much said everything that I wanted to say in this video. I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, and I, for one, am excited in terms of what's going to happen with this game. I grew up playing Mortal Kombat. There's not been a single video game in my life that has had the kind of impact on me that Mortal Kombat has. There are other games throughout my entire 31 years of gaming that have had a lot of impact, but none of them come close to what well, I can't say come close, but none of them have actually gotten to the space that Mortal Kombat has. And even as a person, and always, of course, when I commentate at some point, there's going to be cops going by, go figure. But might as well be a tradition here on the channel. But the thing is that none of them have gotten to the impact that they did on me as a kid and into my adulthood, because I kept playing Mortal Kombat as from a child, from 8 years old up through the years. Now, as of recently, I haven't played it as much, but one thing I've always kept an eye on is the story more than anything. And I've been looking for a reason to come back and play these games. And for the first time in many years, I will say that it seems, you know, we'll find out tomorrow, but it seems like the game will give me a reason to come back, because I'm not into fighting games anymore. I respect them. I grew up with them. I played fighting games, specifically Mortal Kombat, more than any other genre growing up as a kid. However, the fighting games just don't do it for me like they did once. However, if there's going to be a Conquest / action RPG Mortal Kombat Monks style mode with the lore that I'm very familiar with and with characters that I'm familiar with, you can bet your ass that I am going to grind the game and I am going to enjoy it. And I may well do it butt ass naked. I mean, obviously I won't show myself naked on stream. There goes my YouTube channel would go bye-bye. Plus you guys don't want to see that. But the thing is, you guys know what I'm saying. The story is something that has remained with me throughout my childhood and into my adulthood. That is something that has not left me ever since the beginning. So that and the fact that we may get a Conquest type of style game mode, or that being one and the same with the story mode, has me intrigued. And if anything else, even if, let's say I'm completely wrong, right? Let's say I'm completely wrong with this entire speculation and this entire commentary that I've done. Let's say that I am completely wrong and what they do is different than what I'm imagining, right? Let's say I am, okay? I would still be interested to watch my favorite content creators and or streamers with their videos and their streams, and of course to see where the story of this particular iteration in Mortal Kombat 1 ends up. I want to see what happens with these characters. I want to see the twists and turns. I want to see who's a good guy and who's a bad guy and who's the wild card and who's mysterious. And of course, the surprises, because there's always going to be surprises and twists and turns. And Ed Boon, the creator, the co-creator himself, being an ultimate troll, is going to, I think, find a way to troll us in this game. I mean, I have a theory and speculation, which I totally could be wrong with, and I'm going to share it here if I didn't already. Liu Kang might be a corrupt god. You never know. He might be someone who's drowned with power all of a sudden. You know what I mean? He might be the new Shang Tsung. He might be the new Shao Kahn. And whatever. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt it. First of all, he doesn't look like it. When you look at just the way he looks and the way he's dressed, but at the same time, looks could be deceiving. And like in this scene right here, he says, "You have chosen to defy peace, so therefore you've chosen war with a god." So, so I don't know. So, and one more speculation before we go, and I'm glad I remembered this just before I close. Liu Kang has created this world in the story, right, that we know. Does that mean he's the only god? Or are there others that we don't know yet? For instance, Kronika, Shinnok's mother, she's higher than an elder god. And now that she's gone, it's like, are there others like her that control different aspects of life and not just time and all that? Or is Liu Kang the only one? I personally think that there might be others, because if Liu Kang was the only one, that would kind of be boring and limited. Why limit yourself? And that is the biggest mystery right there. Who is that other antagonist going to be? There's always somebody else. There's always somebody else out there or whatnot. And I'm eager to find out and how things unfold. But anyway, with that being said, let me know down in the comment section of what you guys think in terms of Mortal Kombat 1. Are you excited for the game? Whether you are a hardcore Mortal Kombat fan or a hardcore fighting game or gaming fan, or just a casual, or just somebody who's interested in the story of Mortal Kombat. Whichever category of player, gamer, fan that you are, it doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat here. We're all in this massive Titanic, and we're just in different compartments, but we're all on the same boat. So what do you guys think? What are you interested in most? What are you hoping they reveal? What would you like as well? And as far as characters, who is like your number one character that hasn't been revealed yet in this trailer, or hasn't been talked about to be a cameo or whatever it is, or rumored or leaked or whatever it is? Who would you like to see make an appearance in one way or another above all in this game? So thank you very much for taking the time to watch and or listen to this. I apologize for the repeated footage of this trailer, but I had nothing else to show. There was nothing else new to show, and I didn't want to rinse and repeat too much of the Conquest mode and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully my commentary was enough to keep you engaged, as well as my excitement, my legitimate excitement and speculation about everything of being a lifetime, pretty much almost a lifetime Mortal Kombat fan. So yeah, please let me know down in the comment section what you think, and thank you so very much for your incredible support and your time, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.